Hello everybody, welcome on in here to our Church Windows user group webinar covering well, the donations as well as the accounting modules, because we're talking about transferring donations over into the accounting module. So my name is Jim. I'll be your presenter here today. I'm coming to you live on a lovely day here in Columbus, Ohio. We're going to be talking for the next 20 minutes or so about this very topic, different ways of transferring your donations that were entered into the donations module over into your accounting package here in Church Windows, as well as setting that process up. Before we get started, a quick word about your GoToWebinar control panel. Everybody should have one on your screen there. You'll see an orange or red arrow button, usually in the upper left-hand corner of that GoToWebinar control panel, that you can use to either minimize that control panel or maximize it. Minimizing it gives you a little more room on your screen to see what we're talking about here today in our presentation, and maximizing it gives you access to the different parts of that that control panel. Most importantly, the questions section. Like I say, we're going to be talking for approximately the next 20 minutes on this topic here. So feel free to enter any questions that you have about that topic into that questions section, and I will be unlikely to get to those questions until I'm done with the presentation, but I will leave the room open for a while afterwards to answer any questions that pop up as we go. Okay. Oh, and the other thing I do want to also mention is that if you have our regional training manuals that we sell for Church Windows, this is from the donations workbook D103, and the topics we'll be covering go from pages 2 to pages 18 in that D103 training workbook here. Okay. Pretty full topic here. We're probably going to take the full 20 minutes, so let's go ahead and get started on that. We're going to start by opening up the donations module. Okay, so the things we're talking about here in our presentation today require a couple of things to be set up in advance. You have to have your donations giving accounts set up here in donations, all of the church approved entities that people can contribute to. So your general operating fund, your building fund, things along those lines. Those giving accounts have to be set up here in donations. And then over in the accounting module, you also have to have your chart of accounts entered over there. So those things have to be in place first. So the first thing we're going to talk about is drawing a map from the donations module over to accounting. Now, just because you call a giving account over here in donations contributions to the general fund, and over in accounting you create an income account called income for the general fund, doesn't mean that those two things, even though they're both called general fund, are going to link up automatically. Church Windows isn't smart enough to do that. You have to tell it where that money needs to go. You can do this from either the donations module or the accounting module. So here in donations, to get to that map screen, you click on the donations tab here along the top, and then click the button where it says transfer to accounting. This window here that's going to open up has 3 different tabs on it along the top of the screen here. This is where we're going to go when we're ready to actually transfer the donations. Posted transfers is a tab you can go to report on things that have already been done, but what we're going to go to first is this default account links, which is where you set up how it is going to default every time you post your transfer from donations over into accounting. There's 2 columns that you'll see here on this screen. The debit account column that you need to set up here. Oh, the thing I want to point out, when you first come here, before all of this is all set up, everything in this grid underneath debit account, credit account, and this prepaid credit account column is going to be blank. like we see here in this Save the Animals drive right here, where we've got a blank under credit account. When you first come into this window, it's going to all be blank. So this is a place where you come to set these things up. So here when I go to the general fund and I click in the box next to our general fund underneath debit account and I click on my down arrow, these are going to be all of our asset accounts that we've got over in our chart of accounts. Everything under debit account is going to be your assets that you have are going to be linked to assets over in accounting, because this is where the money that you're taking in from the donations module is being deposited. So this is the column where you set up all of where your deposits go. So it can be different asset accounts depending on the source of the monies here. Okay, so that's the simple one. That's where you're depositing all of the money. So the second column here where it says credit account, this is you know, in an accounting system, every transaction has got a credit and a debit to it. So there are 3 different account types you can link here under the credit account. We'll start with this general operating fund giving here as the most common way of setting this up. You link it to a particular checking account under debit account, and then under credit account you link it to an account that begins with the number 4 or an income account. When you set it up in this way, you are recording this donation as increased income to your church. So it goes into this general tithes and offerings income account. Every dollar that you record and transfer is more money that goes into that income account. So that's going to be the majority of the time you're going to use it in that way. So you link it to an asset and you link it to an income account there. Another type of account, and I actually need to kind of scroll down to find one of these, would be like this crop walk account right here. This is called a pass-through account. Oftentimes this is money that you're taking in on behalf of another organization. That gets linked to an asset account and then a liability account, or an account that begins with the number 2. This is money that you take in on behalf of another organization. It filters over into this liability account as money that you owe to somebody else. So it sits there in that liability until such time as you write a check off to that other organization, in this case the crop walk. It could be a disaster relief recovery, as we see here for our flood giving, Housing for Habitat, all of the, Red Cross, all of these other organizations that you may take money in on behalf of. The third type of account you can link this to would be in this example here, where we've got our youth trips payments. So for example, youth trips, we're setting up a trip to the art museum. We're going to take all of our kids in our Sunday school classes on a trip out to the art museum. So that's going to cost the church a certain amount of money. That's going to be an expense to the church. In this case, it's this 5 account here called youth trips expense. So in this case, when you link it to an expense account, you're recording this money into church windows and transferring it over, and it's being recorded as decreased expense to the church. So this lowers this expense account when you transfer it in this way. So that's when the church is incurring a particular expense and you're taking money in to reduce that expense to the church. So that's recording it in that way. I am certain that you have also noticed that there's a third column on here called prepaid credit account. This is for pledging churches, folks organizations that record pledging. Okay, when you do record a particular pledge, oftentimes you'll set up, for example, we're in the year 2017 right now. You can set up the 2018 pledge at any time. And you can record money to next year's pledge in donations. And when you do that, you don't want to transfer that money over into income for the 2017 year, because that money you're taking in is on behalf of the 2018 budgets. So what you do instead is you link it to a liability account. In this case, we've called it prepaid pledges. And as you're taking money in here in the 2017 year, it accrues in that liability account until you open up your 2018 year, and then you can run a journal entry transaction over there in accounting and disperse that money from that liability into your income account in the 2018 year. So it's a holding spot for that money until you're ready to start putting that money towards your budgets in the 2018 year. So those are the different situations and the different ways in which you can set these up on here. Now, this is the default transfer that will take place. So when you first open up your transfer to accounting window, this is how it's going to default. This can always be changed at the time of transferring from donations to accounting. Let's take a look at that window next. If we come here to the Transfer Donations tab here, underneath Transfer Donations to Accounting, you'll see the dates of any donation batches that have not yet been transferred over to accounting. So we've got our 7/23, which is Sunday's date, 2017. You'll notice next to that date over to the left, there's a little plus button. If you click on that, it's going to show you the totals posted to each of your giving accounts in this column here, the amount total that goes in there, and then how it is linked will be over here on the right side. If you are taking in a special a special collection, and for just this month that needs to be changed, you can click in this box and change where that money is being transferred to. So a lot of churches will have something called, for example, Fifth Sunday giving for months where there's 5 Sundays instead of 4. And then the money that you take in on that 5th Sunday might be for a charitable organization. So if that's the way it goes, for example, you can come up here and you can set this up as, just for this time, it's a transfer over into Housing for Habitat. Now, that is for this batch only. And the next time you transfer from donations over to accounting, it's going to set itself back up to the default account there. Okay. All right. A couple of other things to note on this screen here. If for some reason you've entered some donations here that you do not wish to transfer over to accounting, you have a column here for do not transfer. If you were to come in here and click the checkbox where it says do not transfer, what it's going to do is it's going to remove this batch. And when I click away from it, you'll notice it disappears. That batch was marked to do not transfer, so it doesn't by default show up on this screen. There's a checkbox up here at the top that will allow you to show the do not transfer batches. So for example, in this case, if you made a mistake like I may have just done, you can put a check mark there and it'll show you those do not transfer batches. So like an example of when you may not want to transfer this, if folks, for example, contributed like stocks or non-cash giving to the church, and you want the value of those gifts recorded here in donations, but there's a bit more to it over in accounting that you need to take care of. For example, broker fees or something along those lines. It's not a simple one-to-one income to the church. You can enter those types of gifts into a particular batch, mark it as do not transfer, and then post whatever types of transactions you need to over in accounting to take care of those situations. Okay. Also on this screen, if you select a particular batch, again, I can expand it and show you the details here. There's a print selected transfer button at the top of this window right here that will, this is a nice report. This is a nice report because this one is the report that you get out of Church Windows that shows you both the effects in the donations module as well as the effects over in accounting, all in one place. The transfer report options allows you to record what columns will be available on that report. Clicking print will take you to your print preview window. So again, this is a nice report here. It shows you the giving accounts affected in donations, and then the accounts that are going to be affected over in the accounting module here. So it's all in one place. That's a nice report you can print. Okay. Once you are ready to perform your transfer, you just click this post button here in the upper right hand corner, right there. And that'll perform the transfer over into accounting. It takes you to the confirm the donation transaction window right here. You can double check yourself. You can cancel out of here if something is incorrect, but if everything looks good, go ahead and click your post button. It's going to transfer that over into accounting. It'll give you a transaction number. It'll be a 169 DONA or donation transaction over in the accounting module. The other thing I want to point out here on the transfer donations to accounting window before we move on is the posted transfers button right here. So if you come here to click on posted transfers, this shows you everything that has already been transferred to accounting. So these are batches, and it includes the one we just did right here. It's already been posted. And again, you can print your already posted transfers from here as well. Okay. Couple of other quick topics we want to hit on in the time that we have remaining here. It is not an uncommon situation where you've got a treasurer who doesn't work at the church. They may work from their home computer. They may have their own separate installation of Church Windows on their computer. So they run accounting from their home computer, and donations is running on the church computer. So in that case, you can enter your donations at the church computer, and you can run a backup of your data that you can then either attach in some kind of email or save it to a flash drive so that the treasurer can carry it to their home. They can restore that data on their home computer and then perform the transfer there. Here under the administration menu is where your backup as well as the restore function are. So in this scenario, we've run our donations batch at the church computer, and we're ready to back that up to take it to give it to our treasurer so they can take it home. We're going to come here and click on the backup button. This is where it's what you select in the upper left-hand corner underneath what to back up is very important. So you want to, in this situation, make sure that you're only selecting membership scheduler and donations when you run your backup. If you're also backing up accounting by selecting this one at the top, when they restore this data on their home computer, they will be overwriting their accounting. So you want to make sure when you run this backup, you're just doing membership scheduler and donations. From here, you can click your browse button, browse to your USB drive or wherever you want to save that. When you're all set to go, you simply click on Start Backup. I'm saving to the desktop here. It'll run through its backup. It'll create a file called CWMSD, as in Church Windows Membership Scheduler and Donations. That's what that MSD stands for. So then they can take this to their home computer, restore that data, and then they'll be able to perform the transfer themselves on their home computer. Okay. It's going to kick us out of Church Windows when I close out of here. Or it doesn't. Oh, it used to. Okay. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and go back into donations. Two other quick things we want to make sure we cover here today. A lot of folks have, increasingly as time has gone by, have been using electronic giving for their members, where it's sort of like a direct deposit type of a thing you can set up with different types of companies. Here under the donations tab in the upper left hand corner, there's a button called import donations. There are several companies that we have pre-formatted sort of translations for, so Church Windows understands how to work with these different companies. But if you have a different company that gives you a flat text file that you can import into Church Windows, you can also select this text file option right here. I'm just going to go quickly through an example of using Vanco. So here, when you come to import donations and click on Vanco, in this situation, we have received a file from Vanco that includes all of the direct deposit giving that has already been recorded into your bank account. Now you just need to record that information here in the Church Windows program. There is a Setup Givers tab along the top where you take your actual givers that you have here in Church Windows and link them to a code that is provided to you from, in this case, Vanco. So you type that code in there. Now when you do your import from that company, this number gets translated to this person. The other thing you do is do the same thing under Setup Giving Accounts. So there's a fund ID that links to your actual giving accounts here in the Church Windows program. Once these things are filled in properly, you can come to the Imported Donations tab, select your import file, and we have a Vanco import file folder here. There's our example. When I click open, what it does is it gives us a batch that you can import. So you simply select that batch, click your Create Donations button, and it's just like a regular, it's just like a regular batch that you can import. Notice under payment method, it's all electronic file transfer. So you simply select a date, click Post Batch, click Yes, and that's all there is to it. As we talked about earlier, you can then come to your Transfer to Accounting button, and you'll see that batch listed there. You can do your normal posting by clicking on the Post button from here. Okay. Going over a little bit, I apologize about that. The last thing I want to point out is this button at the top, Export Transfers to File. This is a second way that you can take your donations that you may have here in the donations module and put it into a format that then the treasurer can restore them on a different computer. What this does, it's a little bit better than the backup and restore in one sense, and it's a little bit worse in another sense. It's a more complete way of doing it, because when you do this, when you do your export transfers to file, it is taking all of your donations and putting them all in a single file. And then when they transfer it using that file into accounting, it is all of your transactions, and it makes sure that everything from donations matches everything in accounting. The problem with using this, and when I click this button, you'll see this warning. The feature is intended for situations where accounting and donations are used on separate computers. What this ends up doing is it disconnects donations from accounting on this install of Church Windows we have. This will make it so that you can no longer transfer from donations to accounting on this local computer. You can only export the transactions to a file. But again, it's sort of a very complete backup that you get here. We're going to back it up to our desktop, and it creates this transfer.xml file, which we will see right here on our desktop. So this will be the this will be the file that we give to our treasurer. What happens in Church Windows, though, now when we come to transfer to accounting, notice all of that stuff that used to be here is gone. Now the only feature we have is this export transfers to file. So all of that stuff that we talked about earlier disappears when we do this. Now it's just a matter of transferring them all to a file. Then they take it to their that file to their computer, the treasurer, at another location, and then they import it from there. Okay. That's all the time I have for you folks. Sorry, I went a little over time here. That's my mistake. Sorry about that. So if you're all set to go, feel free to go ahead and click on the X in the upper right-hand corner of your GoToWebinar control panel. That'll exit you out. For folks who are out of here, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions about this topic, feel free to type those questions into the box now. I'll leave the room open for a little bit for any questions that you guys may have. Thanks so much for joining me.